I pulled a dusty jar from the back of the drawer, and the first thing that blinked back at me was a 2007 Lincoln 1 cent, looking ordinary until it wasn't. Right beside it sat a 1975 Roosevelt dime, the kind you ignore until history starts whispering. Then my fingers hit a 1995 Jefferson nickel, heavier in feeling than in weight. 3 coins, 3 decades, 1 table, and suddenly the room felt smaller. I told myself it was pocket change, but pocket change doesn't make your heart race. The penny caught the light, and I noticed a detail most people miss. The dime followed, worn in a way that tells a story before words do. The nickel felt like it had traveled further than I ever have. I checked dates again because disbelief is louder than truth. Every scratch looked intentional, like a message left behind. I imagined how many hands had passed these coins along without noticing. What if one of them did notice and stayed quiet? I started connecting years, moments, and mistakes. The penny felt young, the dime felt tested, the nickel felt experienced. Together they didn't feel random anymore. They felt chosen. I realized collections don't always start in albums. Sometimes they start with curiosity you can't switch off. I leaned closer because backing away felt impossible. That's when I knew this wasn't about money at all. It was about what hides in plain sight, and these 3 coins were daring me to look again. The history of the Lincoln Cent 2007 begins within the long and iconic timeline of the Lincoln Penny series, which started in 1909 as a tribute to Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States. The year 2007 continued the design that had been used since 1959, featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side and the classic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse designed by Victor David Brenner. The Lincoln Cent of 2007 was struck primarily at 3 mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia mint coins had no mint mark, while the Denver coins carried a D mark, and the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins with an S mint mark. The coins were made of a copper-plated zinc composition, which had been the standard since 1982, when the United States Mint transitioned from the original 95% copper alloy due to rising metal costs. The 2007 Lincoln Cent holds historical importance as one of the final years before the 2009 redesign, which commemorated the bicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent itself. Collectors and historians view the 2007 issue as part of the final chapter in the Lincoln Memorial Reverse era, which had represented Lincoln's legacy and the ideals of unity and freedom for nearly 5 decades. During 2007, millions of these coins were produced for circulation, and they remained a common sight in American commerce. The obverse of the coin retained Brenner's portrait of Lincoln, based on a photograph taken by Anthony Berger at Matthew Brady's studio in 1864. This image had become one of the most recognizable depictions of Lincoln worldwide. The reverse, designed by Frank Gasparo, depicted the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., with incredible detail, even including a tiny image of the seated Lincoln statue visible between the columns. This design first appeared in 1959, marking the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and continued to represent the cent until the end of 2008. The production quality of 2007 cents was high, and the mint continued to use advanced die polishing and strike techniques, ensuring sharp details in both business strike and proof examples. Proof coins from San Francisco were struck multiple times on specially prepared planchets, creating a deep mirror-like finish that made them favorites among collectors. The 2007 Lincoln Cent does not contain any major varieties, but certain examples display minor die cracks and doubled dies, which are of interest to error collectors. Some of these small die variations are highly sought after by enthusiasts for their uniqueness. The significance of the 2007 Lincoln Cent extends beyond its physical appearance. It represents the enduring symbolism of Abraham Lincoln's leadership during the Civil War, his dedication to freedom and equality, and his role in shaping the moral direction of the nation. The cent has been the most produced coin in United States history, and has served as both a tool for commerce and a symbol of national heritage. By 2007, the Lincoln cent had become one of the longest, continuously running coin designs in American history, second only to a few classic motifs in longevity. The continued circulation of the Lincoln cent reflected the American people's respect for their 16th president and the values he embodied. Though the cost to produce the coin had by then exceeded its face value, debates continued about whether to retire the denomination. Nevertheless, the 2007 issue carried forward a tradition more than a century old, linking modern America to its historical roots and keeping Lincoln's memory alive in every transaction. The story of the 2007 Lincoln cent is one of continuity, legacy, and transition, a coin that served as a bridge between the long era of the Lincoln Memorial design and the coming celebration of Lincoln's life and contributions in 2009. The story of the 2007 Lincoln cent continues as part of a much broader narrative in American coinage and culture. By 2007, the Lincoln cent had already been in production for 98 years, making it not only the most familiar coin in circulation, but also one of the most produced in human history. The cent had gone through several design and composition changes over the decades, but it remained a symbol of American values, progress, and remembrance of a man who preserved the Union. The 2007 coin was struck during a time when the United States Mint was preparing for the historic redesign planned for 2009 to honor the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the coin itself. In this sense, the 2007 cent represents the closing of an era, the final full years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse that had defined the coin for almost half a century. The Mint's operations in 2007 were extensive, producing billions of Lincoln cents for circulation to meet public demand. The Philadelphia and Denver Mints struck business strikes for everyday use, while the San Francisco Mint struck proof coins for collectors. These proof coins were sold in special sets and displayed mirror-like fields and frosted details, making them miniature works of art. The composition of the 2007 cent continued the copper-plated zinc format introduced in 1982 due to the rising cost of copper. Each coin contained 975% zinc and only 25% copper plating. This change had been controversial when first introduced because many collectors preferred the traditional heavy copper coins. But by 2007, the copper-plated zinc cents had become the standard for a full generation. Economically, the Lincoln cent had become a topic of debate during the mid-2000s as the cost of producing a single penny began to exceed its 1-cent face value due to metal prices. However, despite these discussions, the coin remained in production primarily for sentimental and historical reasons. The image of Lincoln was deeply embedded in American culture, and the cent was viewed as an accessible way for every citizen to hold a piece of national history. The obverse of the 2007 coin featured Victor David Brenner's portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which had been used since 1909. Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant, created the design to capture Lincoln's humanity and determination. His initials, VDB, were originally placed prominently on the reverse of the 1909 cent, but due to public criticism, they were removed shortly after release. They were later restored in 1918 in a smaller form under Lincoln's shoulder, where they remain today. The reverse of the 2007 cent, designed by Frank Gasparo, depicted the Lincoln Memorial, which had been introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Gasparo's design was remarkable for including the seated statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, a small but meaningful detail symbolizing Lincoln's continued presence in the American conscience. The 2007 Lincoln cent also reflected broader technological advancements in the Mint's production process. By this time, computer-aided engraving and die-making were standard practices, improving the precision of coin details and consistency across billions of strikes. The mint was using high-speed presses capable of producing hundreds of coins per minute, ensuring that the Lincoln cent remained a stable part of the economy, even as inflation and digital transactions began to reduce the role of small change. Culturally, the Lincoln cent in 2007 was a common piece of Americana found in cash registers, classrooms, and collections across the country. It was often a child's first introduction to numismatics, the art and study of coins. Many Americans associated the penny with good luck, and sayings such as "find a penny," "pick it up," reflected how deeply this small coin had embedded itself in everyday life. Around this time, collectors were also becoming more active in studying minor die varieties and mint errors on Modern Cent's 2007 issues, with doubled dies off center strikes or planche flaws began gaining attention in the hobbyist community. These coins, while rare, reminded collectors that even in the age of mass production, each coin could have a unique story. The global circulation of the Lincoln cent also expanded during this period as billions of American coins found their way into the hands of travelers, traders, and collectors worldwide, making the image of Lincoln one of the most recognized faces on any coin ever produced. As the nation approached the 2009 redesign, the 2007 Lincoln cent stood as a bridge between two historic periods. It represented nearly a century of continuity in American numismatics and symbolized the enduring respect for Abraham Lincoln's leadership integrity and vision for equality. The coin carried the weight of history. In its small size, linking the past struggles of the Civil War era with the modern challenges of the 21st century, the 2007 Lincoln cent was more than currency. It was a living tribute to the man who preserved the nation and to the American spirit of resilience and remembrance. The 1975 Roosevelt dime is a fascinating piece of American coinage that carries both historical significance and numismatic interest. The dime was designed by John R. Sinnock and first released in 1946 to honor President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who had passed away in 1945. Roosevelt was widely admired not only as a statesman and leader of the United States during the Great Depression and World War II, but also for his work in founding the March of Dimes to combat polio, which affected millions of Americans, including Roosevelt himself. The obverse of the 1975 Roosevelt dime features a profile portrait of President Roosevelt facing left. The sculpted likeness captures his determined expression and distinguished features and is surrounded by the inscriptions, "Liberty in God," "We Trust," and the date. 1975. The artist's initials, JS, appear subtly at the base of the neck. The reverse of the coin depicts a classic torch, flanked by an olive branch and an oak branch. The torch symbolizes liberty, the olive branch peace, and the oak branch strength and independence. Above the torch is the inscription, "United States of America," while below it reads, "One dime." The motto, "A pluribus unum," appears horizontally across the top. The Roosevelt dime is composed of a clad composition consisting of an outer layer of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded to a pure copper core. This composition was adopted in 1965 following the removal of silver from circulating dimes due to rising silver prices, which made coins more valuable for their metal content than for spending. The 1975 dimes were struck at 3 mints, Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The Philadelphia coins do not bear a mint mark, while Denver coins carry a D mint mark and San Francisco coins carry an S mint mark. The 1975 issue does not have any major minting errors, but collectors often seek examples with full strike details or proof coins from San Francisco, which have a mirror-like finish and sharper details. Proof coins were part of the regular proof sets and were highly sought after by collectors. The 1970s were a period of continued circulation of Roosevelt dimes alongside other coinage. The design had already become iconic by this time and was familiar to every American. The coins were widely used in everyday transactions, yet they also held appeal for coin collectors due to their historical significance and connection to Roosevelt. The value of a 1975 Roosevelt dime in circulated condition is generally minimal, often worth face value. However, uncirculated or proof examples, especially those with exceptional quality or in original mint packaging, can fetch a higher premium in the numismatic market. Collectors often pay attention to details such as strike quality, luster, and the absence of contact marks when assessing the value of these coins. The Roosevelt dime is part of a long legacy of U.S. coinage that commemorates historical figures and events while remaining in regular circulation. Its design has endured for decades and remains a staple of American coinage. Its production and circulation tell a story of post-war America, the evolving monetary system, and the continued remembrance of a beloved president. In addition to its monetary role, the dime also serves as a reminder of Roosevelt's contributions to public health initiatives. The March of Dimes campaign that Roosevelt inspired continues to impact the fight against polio and other childhood diseases. The 1975 Roosevelt dime is therefore not only a piece of currency but also a small tribute to Roosevelt's enduring legacy. The coin exemplifies mid-20th century American minting practices and reflects the design aesthetics of the period. Its simple yet meaningful design captures the essence of liberty and national pride. Collectors often incorporate 1975 Roosevelt dimes into larger collections that document the evolution of U.S. coinage over time. By examining coins like the 1975 dime, one can gain insight, the cultural and economic context of the era. The 1970s saw a stable yet dynamic economy, and coinage like the Roosevelt dime circulated widely in commerce and everyday life. Coins like this served as a tangible connection to the nation's history and values and continue to captivate collectors today. The story of the 1975 Roosevelt dime becomes even more interesting when we explore the political and economic environment of the mid-1970s, a time when the United States Mint was working to maintain coin production at high levels due to the growing population and increased demand for small denomination coins. The country was experiencing inflation, energy challenges, and transitions in government leadership, and these broader national conditions had an influence on how coinage was viewed and used in everyday life. The dime remained an essential part of daily commerce, especially for vending machines, payphones, parking meters, and small transactions that shaped the daily routines of millions of Americans. The 1975 dime represents a continuation of the clad coinage era that began in 1965 when silver was removed from circulating dimes, quarters, and half dollars. The rising price of silver in the early 1960s forced the government to find a more stable and less expensive metal composition for coins. The copper-nickel-clad structure introduced during this transition proved efficient, durable, and cost-effective, allowing the mint to meet rising demand without relying on precious metals. The 1975 dime therefore reflects the mint's long-term commitment to this modern coinage standard and stands as a typical representative of how American coins evolved away from intrinsic metal value and toward practicality. The production process of the 1975 dime itself reflects the precision and industrial capability of the U.S. Mint. At the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, massive coining presses struck millions of dimes each day. Mint workers prepared copper-nickel sheets, rolled them into strips, and punched circular blanks, which were then sent through an upsetting mill to form raised edges. These edges ensured the coins would stack neatly and maintain consistent size essential for machines and counters. Afterward, the blanks were struck between engraved dies which imprinted Roosevelt's portrait on one side and the torch, olive branch, and oak branch on the other. These symbols continued to represent liberty, peace, and strength values that had defined the nation's identity throughout the 20th century. The San Francisco Mint focused primarily on creating proof coins for collectors. Proof dimes from 1975 were carefully struck using polished dies and planchets to achieve a mirror finish and extremely sharp detail. Mint employees handled these coins with precision, ensuring they remained free of scratches and contact marks. The proof sets containing these dimes were sold to collectors and preserved as examples of the highest quality minting craftsmanship of the time. Interestingly, although the 1975 dime itself appears completely ordinary, there is an important chapter in numismatic history related to the missing 1975 no S proof dime, which was accidentally struck without the S mint mark. The absence of a mint mark created one of the most valuable modern dime rarities, although these missing mint mark examples do not exist for the regular circulation strike of 1975. Only a tiny number of no S proof dimes were ever released before the error was discovered, making them incredibly rare and extremely valuable among collectors. This awareness of rare errors from the 1970s has caused many collectors to carefully inspect even regular circulated 1975 dimes, just in case. The 1975 dime also reflects the ongoing legacy of the Roosevelt series. By the mid-1970s, the design had already been in continuous use for nearly 30 years, becoming one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Roosevelt's image remained unchanged through wars, economic transitions, and political shifts, representing stability and national pride. Even as other denominations underwent redesigns, the dime maintained its classic cynic portrait, which had become instantly recognizable to generations of Americans. The coin's size, weight, and composition remained consistent, ensuring that vending machines and mechanical coin devices throughout the country could continue to operate smoothly without recalibration. Throughout the decade, many coin collectors found themselves expanding their interest in modern coinage, including dimes from the 1970s. Even though these coins did not contain silver, they represented the ongoing evolution of American minting and the changing economy of the nation. Collectors often examine 1975 dimes for strike sharpness, die wear, heavy die polishing, or other small variations that give clues about mint conditions and production methods of the time. In uncirculated condition, the coins display strong luster and detail that reveal the craftsmanship of the minting process. The story of the 1995 Jefferson nickel is part of a long and evolving timeline of American coinage that stretches back to the early 20th century. To understand the importance of the 1995 issue, we must begin with the origins of the Jefferson nickel itself. The Jefferson nickel was first introduced in 1938 as a replacement for the Buffalo nickel, a design that had become difficult for the United States Mint to strike efficiently. The new design honored Thomas Jefferson on the obverse while showcasing his historic home Monticello on the reverse. This design became one of the most recognizable circulating coins in American history, and it continued to appear unchanged for decades. Moving forward through history, the Jefferson nickel faced many national events, including wartime composition changes, post-war industrial growth, economic fluctuations, and renewed interest in numismatics. By the time the United States entered the 1990s, the Jefferson nickel had remained visually consistent for more than half a century. The Mint used the same master design, although minor touch-ups and hub updates occurred periodically. The 1990s were a period of modernization for the United States Mint in both technology and production methods. Laser enhancements, computer-assisted engraving, and digital systems helped improve the sharpness of coin designs. As a result, coins from 1995 often show cleaner lines, brighter strikes, and greater detail when compared to earlier decades. The 1995 Jefferson nickel was minted at two facilities, Philadelphia and Denver. Collectors often examine differences in strike quality, mint marks, and minor die characteristics to understand each year's uniqueness. In 1995, Philadelphia nickels were produced without a mint mark because the P mark was not used on nickels until 1980 and continued afterward. The Denver Mint used the familiar D mint mark. Together, the two mints produced hundreds of millions of coins, ensuring that the 1995 nickel would be common in circulation, yet still interesting for collectors who study minor variations. During this time, the United States Mint was working on new technology to extend die life and improve coin consistency. New die preparation techniques allowed for sharper portrait details, including Jefferson's hair and facial features. The steps of Monticello on the reverse also benefited from improved clarity. Collectors pay close attention to whether the steps are fully defined. The term full steps refers to a grade designation awarded to nickels that show complete undisturbed steps on Monticello. Finding a 1995 nickel with full steps in high grade can be more challenging than expected, because even though the mints had improved technology, the dies still wore down quickly under high production pressure. The 1995 nickel holds a place in mid-decade numismatic study because it reflects the transitional period before the major redesign of 2004 and 2005, when the Westward Journey series temporarily replaced the Monticello reverse. At the time of its release, the 1995 nickel was simply another circulation coin, but as collectors look back, it becomes part of the final decade of the classic Jefferson design era before the mint reopened the design conversation. Coin collectors appreciate these late 20th century nickels for their consistency, reliability, and representation of American coinage identity. The year 1995 itself was a stable period for the minting industry. There were no major shortages of metal, no dramatic economic crises affecting production, and no special commemorative changes impacting the nickel. Instead, the focus was on maintaining strong output quality. Mintage numbers remained high because cash transactions still dominated the economy. Everyday circulation coins like the nickel were essential, so the mint ensured sufficient supply nationwide. For collectors studying the 1995 Jefferson nickel, today the most important factors include condition, mint origin, and strike sharpness. Circulated examples are very common, but finding high-grade mint state pieces, especially those with full steps, can require effort. The Philadelphia issues sometimes show softer details, while Denver is known for producing stronger strikes, though both mints have exceptions and special die conditions that interest specialists. Die cracks, small chips, repunched mint marks, and other tiny characteristics exist and appeal to variety hunters. The nickel also represents the ongoing endurance of the original 1938 design. For nearly 60 years, Jefferson's profile remained unchanged, except for some subtle modernizations. The 1995 issue is part of this lineage, connecting early 20th century coin artistry with late 20th century minting technology. It stands as a symbol of American stability tradition and the role of circulating coins in daily life. Every 1995 nickel that passes through a collector's hands carries the legacy of the mint's evolution and the story of a design that served generations. When presenting a 2-hour video, you can expand each section, slowly discuss each detail carefully, explain how minting changes occurred during the decade, describe the economic background of the mid-1990s, and walk through the importance of Monticello and Thomas Jefferson in American history. You can also show examples of the coin condition comparison talk about grading. Standards explain how collectors identify full steps and explore how 1995 fits into the larger Jefferson nickel timeline. By maintaining a smooth-speaking pace and elaborating on each historical point, you can easily stretch this material into a complete informative documentary-style video for your YouTube audience. As we continue exploring the deeper historical context of the 1995 Jefferson nickel, it becomes important to look at the broader evolution of coin collecting during the 1990s, because this decade shaped how collectors view modern circulation coins. By 1995, the hobby of numismatics was experiencing a resurgence thanks to widespread access to coin magazines, coin shows, and early online communities. Collectors who had grown up in earlier decades were now adults, building organized collections, and newer collectors were paying closer attention to minting details than ever before. This growing interest encouraged the United States Mint to maintain better quality control, especially since collectors in the 1990s began examining circulation coins under higher magnification tools such as loupes and microscopes. As a result, even common coins like the 1995 nickel became subjects of thorough study. Another factor influencing the 1995 Jefferson nickel was the economic climate of the United States. The mid-1990s were a time of economic growth, technological development, and a general shift toward digital commerce, though physical cash, still the dominant method of everyday transactions. The nickel played a key role in daily purchases, making it an essential denomination for vending machines, public transportation, and retail transactions. Because of this constant need, mintage numbers remained high throughout the decade, which is why the 1995 issue is relatively abundant in circulation today. Even with high mintages, however, the condition of surviving examples varies widely because nickels are known to receive heavy wear during daily use. Understanding this helps collectors appreciate why high-grade 1995 nickels are more desirable and why the full steps designation is considered a special achievement for the year. The technology inside the United States Mint was also undergoing rapid modernization around this time. In earlier decades, coin engraving depended heavily on manual artistry, but by the 1990s, computer-aided design began enhancing the engraving process. This shift meant that the portrait of Thomas Jefferson, although based on the original 1938 design, could be reproduced with greater accuracy and smoother detail. The 1995 nickel benefits from this transition because dies created during this era tended to produce sharper and more uniform coins, especially early in their usage. Over time, however, dies still wore down, leading to softer details on many coins. This is why some 1995 nickels show crisp definitions on Jefferson's hair and cheek, while others appear more blended and less detailed. These subtle differences provide depth for collectors who enjoy studying variations within a single year. Another interesting topic is the long-term significance of the Monticello reverse design, which continued to appear during the 1990s without major changes. Monticello, the home designed by Thomas Jefferson, represents architecture, intellect, and American heritage. Because it remained on the nickel for so many decades, it became a symbol of national continuity.